Hello and welcome to this Tier 4 seasonal special edition of Creative Career Talk with writer, director and actor James Kermack. My name is Andrew Macklin. I'm an actor and qualified career coach. And in this series, we explore what it is to live well as a creative in the world today. James, thanks for joining me in this, like I say, Tier 4 Christmas. How are you doing today in general?
I'm loving it, man. I'm in Tier 4, you know. It's super exciting. You know, I always wondered what it'd feel like to go from Tier 3 to Tier 4, and it feels good. You know, it feels good.
Fantastic. You reflect back exactly how I feel about it. Listen, look, in way of introduction to you, I guess, for people who aren't familiar with your work, but will soon become quite familiar. You're a writer, a director, and an actor. You're currently head of development for Featuristic Films, and your latest film, the action thriller and darkly comic Knuckledust, has just been released in UK, America, Australia, and New Zealand this month. Stealing the jobs of a whole team of creatives, you wrote, directed, and starred in it yourself. Yes. Which, you know, we'll dig into in a moment. Your debut film as writer-director was in 2017, which was the mental health drama Hello Joe, which I also saw and also loved. And as an actor, other credits would be Chernobyl, Doctor Who, Cucumber, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. But I mean, I guess I want to start talking about Knuckledust because I only saw it recently and it's made quite the impression on me. But the first thing that stuck out to me for it was the poster, which I'll definitely be sharing, but second, it's the cast list. And if you just bear with me, I want to read out some of the names in this because I think it just speaks to the quality of the whole thing, really. So you've got Jaime Winstone, Gethin Anthony playing an excellent comic role. Alex Ferns, legendary actor. Phil Davis. I loved Kate Dickie's performance in this. And fellow Waterford and Irishman, Moe Dunford.
Yes.
As well in that. I mean, yeah. How do you get a team like that together?
It's just been, I mean, the project's been going for 10 years. So I tend to just, if I vibe well with someone and get on well with someone, become friends, you know, you really respect them as an actor and you kind of like, at some point you start writing either towards these people or a project comes up and you're like, I really want to get back on set with that person. Or, you know, I mean, Geth, obviously, all three of us worked together and met at the Old Vic New Voices 12 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, we're old. And 12 years ago. And so, yeah, Geth read this nearly a decade ago for the first time. You know, the actors like Kate and Phil and Christy O'Donnell, who's also in it. My first film, Hello Joe, premiered at the Dinard Film Festival. They were all there. I was a judge on the short film section, and Phil Davis had directed a film in it, and Kate Dickie was in a film in it. Obviously, I didn't ask them to read the script until after the judging had all been done, so there's no weird confusion. Kate Dickie's film actually ended up winning, and I think it won a BAFTA as well. It's called Operator. It's a really good film. And so I basically just said to them afterwards, you know, hey, you know, I've done this film, you know, would you like to have a look? And I've got a script I think you'd be fantastic for if you wouldn't mind reading. And we had a beer. And then I, you know, for instance, told Phil Davis for half an hour how much I loved his performance in Face with Ray Winstone. And then I said, I'll never do that again. Once we're on set, I'm super professional. I'll never do that. And so that's how I got those three. You know, became friends with them, sent them the scripts. They were involved, which was fantastic and attached. Gethin, I knew, and he's fantastic. And that was the same for a lot of the cast. I mean, Alex, I only actually met Alex Ferns on Chernobyl when we were doing that together. But I had seen him on stage at the Tricycle, what's formerly the Tricycle, doing a play with Eugene O'Hare, True West by Sam Shepard. And it was, I don't know if you ever saw it. It was amazing. And Ferns and Eugene were just off the charts. And I thought Ferns was brilliant then. And so we hung out in Lithuania and did Chernobyl together and got on really well. He's a very, very funny, intense, cool, awesome guy. And an amazing actor. Like he is pure, what is the word? It's like savagery. It's like, you know, like so intelligent. It's like the caveman of actors. It's like the originator of like what acting is. It's so pure. And so when Knuckledust was coming up, there was a role in it, and I was like, do you want to come do this? It's cool. You get to wear an eye patch. He was super in. And we were really lucky actually to get him signed up, because he then literally, I mean, we couldn't get him now at all. He went on to do Star Wars and Batman and a few films, some big show for Netflix, and it was bam, 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 bam. And so even when we shot with him on Knuckledust, his first day of shooting, we had to condense 2 days into one because he was so busy. And it was the day after he'd won the BAFTA the night before for Chernobyl. So he traveled down from Scotland to shoot with us the next morning. And so, yeah, we just had to kind of slot him in. But we had to do that with a lot of the cast, because the cast are all, always working. They're a really good cast. And so the scheduling was difficult at certain points.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, we'll definitely dug into a little bit more around that idea of, I guess, building relationships and holding on to people that you really enjoy working with, and then, seeking out those that you were really impressed by, as it sounds like you were with Alex, seeing him on stage and whatnot. But I want to ask you a little bit first around Knuckledust in itself, and what you were mentioning there about the eye patch, just for me seemed to epitomize to a degree what Knuckledust, some of the flavor of it to a degree. So, I mean, how would you describe Knuckledust?
Man, it's so difficult. I've been working on the film for 10 years, but when people ask me that, I'm like, let me have a little think. I mean, it's a wild, crazy, mental film. It's an action thriller with elements of comedy throughout it. We've really tried to, we wanted to smash a few genres together and then kind of tie them all up in a bow at the end, so they all kind of become one thing. I'd say it's a real kick in the nuts. And it gets your noggin jogging, which I think is quite good. So, the idea was it would be a punch to the face when you watch it for the first time. I mean, it was intended for cinema, of course. So a big punch in the face, and then ideally you'd want to watch it again to really kind of like get the most out of it, get all of the little touches, the homages, the little moments that maybe you should have picked up on earlier. So the idea was not for it to be a brainless actioner. It was to elevate a lot more than that, which I think I'm really pleased to say that I think we have achieved that, especially on the kind of limited budget that we had.
And I'd have to agree with that. I mean, watching at the very beginning, it feels like a very stylized action thriller to begin with, that then gets more in depth, and you realize that you're actually into a bit of a mystery, and then you're actually into weirder levels of comedy that are unexpected, and then there's some real pathos in it. In places that you're not sort of expecting. So it's sort of, my experience of it at least is, like you say, it's that punch in the nuts to which you're then sort of dragged down into increasing levels of complexity. But it fits itself nicely together, like you say, at the end. So, I mean, you mentioned that it's sort of 10 years in the making as a sort of a formed thing. And just to, I guess, go back, well, I mean, we met, like you said, roughly 12 years ago, I think, doing the 24-hour plays at the Old Vic. And at the time, my knowledge of you would have been as an actor. We were all in that as actors. And so it feels like quite a journey, maybe. And maybe you were doing some element of film or directing or writing previous to that. But it felt, for me at least at the time, that we were very much actors in that space. And now you were still acting, but also doing this. And so, I mean, what was the journey for you? What instigated that shift from I'm an actor, if that's what it was, into actually there's other stuff I want to be able to create and make?
Yeah, I was definitely more, I was directing and writing little bits here and there, but it was always geared towards me as an actor. It was always geared towards a vehicle for me to push my acting career. So it's to facilitate more than anything. And then I think maybe 7 years ago, I kind of decided I didn't want to do theatre anymore. There wasn't much money, and also I wasn't getting hired on bigger jobs. So I wasn't really stepping up to certain points. I wasn't getting seen for those things. So I was just kind of like, what am I doing here? And I had to sit down and think, what was the intention of this career? For the first time I was sat there going like, is this what I want to be doing? Because I'm not doing it. And so I sat down and thought, what was the intention? And the intention at the age of 13, 14, when I was interested in this, was not to be on the stage of the Odd Vic or the RSC. That wasn't the aim. The aim was to work in movies and TV. And so I thought, okay, so let's switch it up. So I just called my agent and said no more theatre at all. Even if I was broke and I needed money, I was just kind of like, I'm going to cut it off at the source in case something comes in, and just go for TV and film now. That's all I want to go for. So we started doing that, which is not as easy as it obviously sounds. But luckily I'd done a show, Guys and Dolls, where I played Nathan Detroit at the Gatehouse. Really fun production. And the casting director on that was then working, I can't remember the casting director's name, basically the casting Doctor Who. And so I got called in for that and went in and auditioned and got that part. Fantastic, you know, it's my first TV credit. It's a big TV show. You know, it wasn't a massive part or anything. It was like one scene, but it was with Capaldi, who I really love. And funnily enough, he actually he was so lovely, but I was so nervous about doing this. And a lot of people know this as yourself. You know, you go in, if you're the lead in a show, or leading a film, like you're kind of leading everything. It's like directing it. You know, you're in charge. So there's slightly less nerves than when you drop in for a day and you feel like you're just like kind of just get in, get out, and don't fuck it up, basically. And I got there, and I'd been directing, you know, some music promos and stuff like that. You know, to try and again push, you know, my kind of acting career a little bit. And I messed up my lines, my first lines, and I said, "Oh, sorry, everyone, cut." And and I was like, oh my God, Jesus, what have I done? And I could see the director, Doug McKinnon, walking towards me. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I know what I've done. I'm really, really sorry. I've been directing music promos. It doesn't matter. I have no excuse. Do what you're about to do, please. And he obviously absolutely hammered me in a really generous and kind of polite way. But it's my job to say, cut, you don't ever do that. You know? And I was like, mortified. You know, it's the most people I've ever had in the crew watching me and everything else. You're at the BBC, you're doing Doctor Who. And I was kind of like, oh my God. And then Capaldi was super lovely. And he just kind of explained, you know, the day player thing and how many times he did that when he was, you know, starting out and stuff like this, and really put me at ease. So it was really nice to see how someone like that runs a show. You know, he's the lead, he's running it. And rather than being the person who also piles on and goes, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you? You know, blah, blah. He put me at ease, made me really calm, and he was super lovely about it. So that was really nice. So to get back on track, sorry, I just wanted to tell you how lovely Peter Capaldi is. To get back on track, the way this came about and this shift was I decided to try and find a project for me to act in as a lead. And then when that wasn't working out, I tried to write a project for myself. I'd been told multiple times that I was never going to be a romantic lead, so I cut that out. I was told, you know, a few times that I'm not exactly Shakespearean, so we cut that out. So I was kind of like, what do I look like? What do I sound like? What is my build? What do I enjoy watching? And that was fight films and action films. So I started boxing and tried to work something towards you know, that kind of vehicle for myself. But it was difficult. You know, we spoke to some directors because originally it was just for me as a lead, which is fantastic. But we spoke to some directors. We actually ended up speaking to Tony Kaye, who directed American History X and Detachment. Fantastic, phenomenal director. You know, he wanted to shoot it out in LA. He wanted to do handheld, like it was really sounding cool. Funnily enough, I shot a self-tape back before all it was self-tapes, lit it really nicely, got my sister as a makeup artist, Billy, to do heavy makeup on me and, you know, blood and guts and stuff, did this monologue to camera, sent it to him, and we were Zoom chatting because he was in LA. And he said, you know what, I haven't looked at the, you know, the video you sent yet, so let's have a look at it now. So if you can imagine, I can hear my voice doing an audition whilst Tony Kaye is watching it, kind of going, and I was like, my God, is this where my career ends? You know, like whilst I watch it, I can actually watch my career end at this point. And then he stopped it and said, yeah, no, I can work with that. I can work with that. But for various reasons, that didn't work out. I went through, you know, a couple of producers and stuff. It just wasn't clicking. And then I met a fantastic guy called Rob Mitchell and a guy called William Howell. And Rob was a guy at Disney and stuff, and he'd worked in these massive places. He's done a lot of big stuff, and we kind of sat down. And he said how much he loved the script, how fantastic it was. He said this can be a game changer if you get this right. We had a couple of wines. I was very excited. I was like, this is it. This is my moment. And then he said, but one bit of advice, you can't be the lead. Drop out of the lead, get a director, and write yourself a supporting role if you want to advance yourself as an actor. Because he said, you can't be the lead. You're not going to get the film up and running. It's too difficult. At the time, I was very upset, obviously, because I'd spent all this time, you know, getting a vehicle for myself and then being told, even when you've made it for yourself, you can't make it. And so, but his advice actually turned out to be to change my career, kind of push it in a real direction. And I decided that, you know what, I do want more control. So I decided I would direct the film and go for it that way. And I actually wrote myself a supporting role to be in it at the time. And I thought, I'll find a lead and I'll do this. Of course, no one would let me direct it. So that was the next one, because they were like, you haven't directed a feature. This is too big for you, blah, blah, blah. You can't just jump to this. You know, I've done a few music promos and short films. So I was like, right, okay. So change tack again. I'm going to write and direct a smaller feature to show that I can handle a feature. It obviously won't be an action, because to do an action on no budget is insane. So I did High Low Joe, and I put that together for like 40K cash, and wrote and directed that. And then obviously that's a drama. So when that came out, I was like, I've got Knuckledust, and people were like, you can't direct Knuckledust. You can't go from this drama to an action thriller. So it didn't at first help me because it was just kind of like, Jesus Christ, you know, what do I have to do to get on a set and just get this done? And then luckily, whilst I was working at doing post-production at a company called Zebra in Paddington, and I was doing the edit there was a producer there called Julien Lafleur, who said, look, I've seen bits of High-Low. I really love it. He just set up his film production company. He's a French guy in the UK. And he was like, do you have anything else? And I said, yes. I had this script called Knuckledust. Would you like to read it? And he was like, yeah, fantastic. And I'd actually got artwork done for it already and put together a package. And they came back the next day and were like, we love it. We want to take it. And I was like, that's fantastic. But you can only have it if you attach me as a director now within the contract, which they agreed to do. So that was insane. So that was the first step on the way to this actually physically happening. Because before this, it was always kind of like there was always a problem. Now that wasn't to say that the problems ended, because I had another person and a company with me now, but they were then on the same bandwagon as me, as trying to convince other people that James can direct this film. And so that's how that then moved for the last 4 years. And then we managed to, you know, he did an amazing job of pulling the finance in. And obviously I brought along the cast, and so we worked together. And that's how I became not just getting Knuckledust made, but how my career kind of completely changed. And I became head of development at Featuristic with Julien. So that one thing kind of shifted everything.
I mean, that's what a story. I mean, I knew of some of its movements, but I didn't know it on the level of detail to that. And I think what's really interesting to hear is how intentional and practical it was at that beginning point when you were acting and going, look, you know, theatre-wise, there's elements of this that are not working for me. But actually, when I really consider what I began this for, what I was trying to do, this isn't really it. And so, and the really brave move of going to an agent and saying, look, I'm not doing theatre anymore. This is definitely what I'm going to move into. That then led onto all these things. And to hear, I guess, the level of work in getting Knuckledust on, making an entire other film before getting to the film, to then be told, you know, you can't direct this film, or it be in it. It feels like there's a lot of, I guess, you know, rational sacrifice. A lot of times when you're being told, yeah, you can have your dream, but not all of it. You can have a little bit of it, and how much are you willing to give out and not have. And I know that there'll be people watching, I think, who might be in a very similar position to how you were at that point, going, I'm maybe not exactly where I am and where I want to be moving forward. But for you, when you suddenly decided, you know, yeah, actually, I want to make stuff. I want to make either a vehicle for myself, or I want to make stuff. What were the first things that you kind of identified that I need to learn these new skills now? Because it's not, I mean, I think I'm correct in saying that, you know, you weren't at film school before this. So it's very much a kind of case of out of the blue going, I'm going to start from scratch and make myself into this person. So what were the first things that you were like, these are clear skills I'm going to need to have to pick up on?
Yeah, I mean, I looked into film school and I could not afford it. I also couldn't warrant it after going to try drama and acting at uni, and I thought it was terrible, so I stopped. And then went to drama school for 3 years and paid for that. And I was just kind of like, I can't warrant paying money to learn again. So I'm just going to have to learn on the job practically as much as possible. So I started out with a mutual friend of ours, Matthew Bartlett, and we set up a company and we started shooting trailers for the print room, the theatre in Notting Hill, which we learned to edit. Well, I'm still not an editor in any way, but learned to put scenes together and stuff like that on his little Mac, his little slow Mac at the time. You know, we bought Final Cut. We shot some music promos together, the first of which you were in. So, you know, we felt very privileged when we said to this artist, you know, we'll shoot your music video. And he was like, yeah, fantastic. And we're like, okay, let's do it. As ever, with everything I did, it kind of went overly ambitious because I wanted to see how far I can push, what I can get out of this. I mean, we shot that for zero, as you know, because there was no payment forthcoming for anyone. But we shot that for zero, and I ended up doing that for quite some time, which was shooting things for no real budget. You know, I mean, on that one, we went on YouTube and made a dolly track out of a giant piece of wood, some roller skate wheels and some rope. And it was the heaviest thing in the world, you know, and never again would I want to do that. But we kind of just went for it on everything. And so that's how I kind of went through. You know, you do one music promo and then you tell people, I can direct music promos. So you'll get more. I mean, I don't think I ever directed a music promo over £1,000. Like everything I did was in £0 to £1,000 budgets. So it was super small, but it meant and there was always 1 day shoots. So it was always kind of like, right, how far can I push this? How fast can I go, but with still quality and so on and so forth. So that was kind of how it went. I just learned on the job as much as possible. And the pluses of that are you make mistakes. So you learn from the mistakes really quickly that you don't want to do them again because you're in the real world situation. Real world problems come out. It's not in a classroom where they go, if you do this wrong, this will happen. And it's kind of like, okay, I'll note that down. Won't do that because this will happen. Whereas obviously if you're doing it on set and you fuck it up, the shit that comes, you don't get to write down because it's already coming at your face. So it's kind of like, right, okay, I'll learn that for next time. But it means on screen or, you know, within the set, sometimes stuff will stay on screen that you're like, damn, if only I'd have known, you know. But equally, I think there's a charm to that in that the more films I make, hopefully, well, I definitely can, but hopefully people, if they follow that, will see the evolution of, oh, he learned from that and he doesn't do that anymore. He learned from this and he does this a bit more and so on and so forth. So I think it's worked best for me, to be honest, because it also meant that I didn't spend 3 years in film school again. I accelerated and I just chose my own path, and that was kind of it.
I think what's great in that is the idea that not only is it possible to move into, you know, the work that you're currently doing from a position of not having officially trained in that way, but also there are degrees in which it is better. That really practical sense of learning mistakes on the job in a way that you just can't forget because you've been through it to a degree. And there was something that you mentioned there that I thought was really interesting, and it was that really early, overly ambitious attitude. So a sense of, I'm going to start making trailers for this theatre, but how big can we make it? How far can we go? And I wonder what for you is the benefit, or has been the benefit of that as an attitude?
A lack of safety, which not on set, obviously. The safety on set is always paramount, and I am always one to push that. Like on a serious note, I am always one who's kind of like, is this safe to do this, even though I would like to do this? But the safety net for me isn't there as much, because I'm just kind of like, well, I think we can do it, so let's just do it. Like, you know, what can happen here? Like it will look great as it looks in my head, or it will look terrible, and I'll be the one to get the blame. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the thing. If the film does really well, it's great to, I'll always happily point out, like, you know, if we get good reviews and stuff, I'll tag the people who get mentioned in the reviews. And like, I'll always say like, I couldn't have done it without the costume, the production design, stunts, like everything. It's all one thing. But if it all goes badly, it's just my name. So I'm always quite happy with that, in a sense of I have no safety net in that sense, you know, creatively, because it will always be that terrible James Kermack film. But if there's good elements, you know, like the costumes are amazing, that will be the Cynthia Lawrence John's costumes are amazing, or the production design is so good, and that's Anna Papa's production design, like, and in that James Kermack film. So I quite like the idea that, you know, if I keep pushing, firstly I'll learn more because I'll make more mistakes, or I'll correct myself quicker, which is always pleasing to know when you do something in the moment and you get it right. You're like, fantastic. Why did I get this right? Could I have gone quicker? Could I have got it better? You know, and if something goes a little bit wrong, it's kind of like, you get there quicker. You just kind of like instantly, right, recorrect, fix this now. So for instance, in Knuckledust, I had planned a whole shot around Happy and Hot Lips, played by Phil Davis and Matthew Stavers at the beginning, where they're in their car and it's all in a one take. And we go around the car the whole time. And we shot at night. The lighting was beautiful from Pat Aldinger and his team. This car was gleaming, beautiful, reflecting everything. So, so you can, and the car had, you know, I wasn't to know, you know, because again, it's a big film, there's a lot going on. I couldn't know the exact thing of what was on the car. And obviously it's got those silver rims around the windows and stuff like that. So the camera going round, reflection, reflection, reflection. So it's kind of like, right, that whole shot that I had to open this, that can't work. It's late, we've got to move, I've got a lot to shoot. Okay, let's break it all up, let's do it like this. You know, and it's just kind of fun really that way as well. You change in the moment, it works. You know, at one point we had Amy Bailey come in to do a scene, and she was pregnant at the time. I didn't realize how pregnant. So she came in and we shot the wide, and I said to my first AD, Chris Malin, like, what do you think? I mean, maybe that could work. And he was like, are you high? Like, she's heavily, you know, she's pregnant there. And I was like, yeah, okay, we're going to change everything up. We're going to move in. We're going to do it like this, bang, bang, bang. And it's kind of like sometimes the things that seem like a problem at first make something better anyway. And they take you out of your headspace where you're kind of like, this is the shot. This is what we're going for. I think, you know, the more if you go for something really simple, which is absolutely fine, you can do that. I've just never personally, you know, been that interested in that. You can make your set, you can get it all done, get your hours, it's okay, sort of thing. I quite like pushing everything to the edge, personally, and professionally. So I'm kind of like, what more can I do? And that might be a personality thing from me, I guess. But I think I've always had that kind of thing of, maybe this is the last time I get to do this, you know? Maybe this is the last time I get on this set. So what if I don't say everything I really want to say in this? And what if I don't get the shot that I really, really wanted to get? So I'm kind of like always pushing for that little bit more.
I mean, it sounds like that has so many benefits to you, and that allows you to learn quicker and more. But also it feels like it opens up a bit of a creative edge. So by being in the moment and throwing stuff at it and having things not work, you're forced into being more creative and finding other ways around it. But I think that perspective that you mentioned as well, around looking at it as potentially the last time, is, you know, a very realistic perspective to take, in a sense, that actually can, I think, you know, push you to do your best really in that situation. It feels like one of the sort of themes of these sort of talks has become repeatedly, and that's sort of, you know, networking and building. And although you have written, directed and starred in this particular film, it is clearly, if you look at the IMDb page, by no means a one-man project, you know. And I can imagine a lot of people, myself included, would look at the idea of starting something like that and go, well, how the hell do you get this amount of people? I mean, the connections and the working and all of that to get a team behind you. And like you were saying with Capaldi on Doctor Who, to lead a team as well in that way, that involves, I think, such a degree of maturity in relating to people and nurturing those relationships to get them to, I guess, go with you on what I imagine are risky elements in filming. I have this idea, it might sound crazy to you, but trust me, I got a vision, and run with it. And so I wonder, over that time, are there any attitudes that you've changed about how you approach people, or things you've learned over time that has made you go, actually, this works for me, this way of connecting with people and leading people works?
Like I said, the way I've always done it is kind of like, if I get on with people, we become friends, or even if we're not, best friends or anything, there's a connection there. So I'm kind of like, I'll hold on to that. I'll take my opportunities when I get them and say, look, this is what I do, or this is what I'd like to do with you, and so on and so forth. And I like recommendations, from people I trust. And that's, I kind of just collect people, and I'm very singular in my vision of what I want. So people can get, I think, get on board with it. So they're kind of like, okay, this is what he wants to do. And I tend to, obviously people get paid, but I tend to offer the opportunity to do what I do a little bit more. So they have the safety net of me, hopefully. So I'm the safety net, but I lower the safety net quite a lot. So I give them the opportunity, ideally, to collaborate in a way that they get to really put themselves into stuff a lot more. So they can go a bit further with the production design, a bit further with the costume, with the fights. Let's go a bit wilder here. Let's push it like you haven't pushed it before. And then everyone kind of feels a bit. I want people to have the freedom to feel like the film is also theirs. So it's that thing again of like, if everything goes wrong, it will be a James Kermack film that went wrong. But ideally, if everything goes really well, it will be, they did that on that film, and that's fantastic in that area, and so on and so forth. So I really think, hopefully, I collect people and then offer them something that potentially they're not going to get on a slightly more rigid set, and so on and so forth. But yeah, just generally, I like people, and once I get on with someone and I respect what they do as well, I'm kind of like, I'd love to work with you all the time. I mean, sometimes the project, as you know, like you can't have everyone you know and love on the same project. Like, some actors are right for certain things, some cinematographers are right for one job perfectly, and there's something else that I need something on this job. So you can't do it every time, but they're always there. So when a certain project comes in, I'm like, I have the name. I can go. I can, call that person. I mean, Moe came through, a recommendation. So, and I adore Moe. Like, he's one of my best pals now. I think he's fantastic. And, but he came through Amy Bailey, who did Vikings with him. And we emailed a little bit. Somehow, I think he read all the interviews I did for Hilo, and he watched Hilo. He really got on board with that. And I sent him a Bukowski poem, I think. And he loved Bukowski. So he was like, wow, this is so good. And then we just went back and forth with Bukowski for a bit. And then we met and we're just on the same page. And that just worked out. It was just, we went into battle together on this film. And it was like, there's a nice synergy there. And I just try and do that with everything. I want everyone to have a nice time. I want everyone to be feel comfortable and free on the set, and that's generally, I think, touch wood, I mean, we've hung out, how I am with people. Like, I'm not, I want people to be themselves, basically.
Well, more than that, what I'm hearing there is that there's a sense of the phrase creative catnip came to mind in that what you're offering, and I think offering is key. So when you were reaching out to connect to people, you're offering them the opportunity to do more of what they really want to do. So here is a vehicle, a project that I have. I'm single-minded about the vision of it, but within that, I'm going to be pushing you and creating the space for you to do more of what you naturally love to do. And that, I think, is really hard, actually, for a creative to turn down in a way. I can't think of anyone who would, retreat from that. And I love what it sounds like, just a sharing of genuine interests. Sending a Bukowski poem to someone is, you're not going to find that in some Amazon book on connecting with people. That's just sharing.
Well, lesson one. Yeah, it was in that book I read on Amazon. Lesson one, send a Bukowski poem.
I'm just going to start doing that instead of Christmas cards. We're coming. I mean, we could talk for ages. We're coming near the end, though, because I know there's more tier 4 to enjoy. But what I'm really always interested in, actually, is, I guess, from the outside in, it can look like somebody is creating a thing and they have a thing and they're promoting it and that's the thing that they're doing. But I think more often it's really interesting to see that people are actually in a consistent process of making stuff. And I think that is something that people can forget about. And so I'm always interested to ask people about sort of what's next. And I know we spoke a little earlier and there was lots of signs on the wall of future projects, but in general, yeah, what are you noticing at the edge of what's coming forward? What kind of things are in your head, without giving away specifics, but are there projects that are mulling over that you constantly have on tap, or how do you work that?
Yeah, I mean, there's constantly working on projects and ideas. I mean, I have an entire booklet, which is this. These are all of the ideas that I have at the moment, which I'd really like to write at some point. But I think it's just, I've come to be better on my job by working on the job. So, I've been writing for probably for 10 years. The first thing was Knuckledust. And so the more I do, the better I get, the more I understand what's happening and so on and so forth. And so I just continually do it. And it means I get quicker at it. Again, with the directing, you don't make the same mistakes. So suddenly everything becomes a bit more succinct and fantastic. So yeah, I've got 3 projects I'm working on at the moment. One is an animated TV series. One is 2 of films. One is a Western. So it's all very varied, but it's just continuing doing it. I think this year has been, I know for me personally, I've spoke to people, but I think this year has been difficult for everyone, obviously. But on a creative mind level, it has been very hard to get yourself in the frame of mind of kind of going, I'm going to create this world today, when you look outside and the world is a mess, and it's very difficult to gain your footing, sort of thing. But I have found that when I do get stuff down, I do feel a bit better, like I put something better out. So that's kind of all I'm doing at the moment, is I'm looking forward to my tier 4 Christmas, where I can't do anything anyway, apparently. I have 3 scripts that I've kind of scheduled to do 1 hour on, 1 hour on, and then 3 hours on. I have a lot of reading. As head of development, I get sent a lot of scripts to read. But yeah, I think it's just, what's the word? Kind of, it's the same thing we were just saying, you don't know if you're going to get to do it again. So I'm kind of like, filming, stopping here and then when stuff's happening and so I really just want to be ready as well. I want to have a bank of scripts ready to go, so that when everything is ready to go, we're out there, we're on. We're supposed to have something shooting next year with the company, which is a really cool serial killer thriller, which is supposed to be shooting out in Canada, which I co-wrote. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, it's just kind of, just keep going. I think that's the only kind of advice I have, is kind of like, every time I thought I was going to stop and I can't do it anymore, like, no one cares. No one's reading it. When they do read it, they're telling me I shouldn't be doing it. It was all practice, as I see now, for being good at the job. So it's kind of like, boxing, and then you don't ever train. So when you do get punched in the face, you don't get back up. Whereas I think, you train, even though you don't have a fight coming up, when that fight does come up, you're fight ready and you're good to go, and you win finally. So I'm just kind of pushing for that.
I think there's so much in that, but also I think it's the clearest definition of an artist, I think, is that person who's looking out the window at a horrible world and then creating their own one inside, And I think what you say about practice is so key. It sounds like you've got a real sense of there's elements that you are doing on a daily basis that enable you to be able to A, get better, and B, be ready when ready is required. And that is actually the skill, and that is the practice. And that those, I guess, failures, as crippling as they are when they're continually, like 2020, hitting you in the face, they are refining something that further down the line actually will find its time. James, the most important question perhaps is how can people see, and where can people see Knuckledust?
Knuckledust is out in the UK and the US, New Zealand and Australia now. In the UK, for definite, I know it's on Sky, Virgin Media, Google Play, Xbox, PlayStation, and Amazon Prime, and potentially YouTube Movie as well. So yeah, it's everywhere.
Excellent. I can't recommend it enough. It was such a salve as I watched it after a post announcement of Tier 4. I was like, it was just the right place and the right time for me to see that film. And I'm really excited to see what's coming up in the projects that you've mentioned going forward as well. But James, thank you so much for being, I think, just really honest, really informative, and like clearly passionate and sharing that. So thank you so much, James.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.